What's going on, guys? CTG Matt back. Today I was filming another video, and then I got the update, a couple of NBA updates, and I said, you know what? The video I was filming can take a back burner. We're going to talk about some of this breaking news. The breaking news, well, not the newest one, but the older one was that Bobby Portis is suspended for 25 games this season. We're going to start there first. Bobby Portis suspended for 25 games this season. I think it was a little bit high. 25 was a very high number. I understand tramadol is a part of the banned substance list. However, at the same time, you could very well see his mistake. I don't want to be the guy that plays devil's advocate for everybody because I'm not. But at the end of the day, he was taking tramadol and he meant to take Toradol. Tramadol, Toradol, the names are very similar. And he said an assistant gave him the wrong one. I can see that, to be honest, dude. I can really see that happening. So it sucks for Bobby, BP, because, again, he was having a decent season. And for the Bucks all around, this is a big injury. Giannis still isn't, well, I think he's going to be healthy for the start of after the break, which is today, actually. So I think Giannis is going to be all right to come back. But missing Bobby Portis is going to be huge because that was a lot of their bench production. Of course, they have other guys off the bench like Gary Trent Jr., AJ Green, who can spark it and get hot and go. But Bobby Portis is a guy who can really help them down low, and especially since they really don't have, they're not the strongest in the front court. Like, I'm a big fan of Brook Lopez and Giannis, of course. However, after that, their front court production is very limited, and Bobby Portis allowed them to play more of the 5-out with Brook off the court. Jesus, I just stuttered like crazy. And it just gave the Bucks a different look without Brook on the court because Brook's more of a drop coverage big. Bobby can come up. It just gave them different looks. But now without Bobby, you're very limited on your front court, and with 20 some odd games left, I don't know how many games left are going to be there when he returns, but I'm sure he'll be back before the end of the season because I think the Bucks are going to be playing deeper into the playoffs this year, my opinion. This coming out also has me asking more questions, like how common is it for these NBA guys to play through this much pain? You know, we are like 50 some odd games in, maybe 60. I can't remember the exact number right now, but we're far enough into the season where we're past the midway point, and you have Bobby Portis taking Toradol on a daily basis, by the way. Portis had been consistently taking Toradol for a while, and Toradol, if you're not big on pharmaceuticals, I'm not either, but I read a lot about it, and you hear about Toradol a lot, specifically from stuff like NFL players take Toradol, a lot of Toradol. You heard that? I watched Raw Room, I think it's called, with some of them NFL vets, and they talked about Toradol, and they said it's not necessarily the strongest drug, Toradol. It's not necessarily the strongest one in the world, but it definitely gets rid of pain. It alleviates the pain, and it does its job. If you can get the right milligram dosage, obviously, or the right needle full. But it does the job, and it alleviates pain, right? So my worry is that he was taking Toradol 30, 40, 20 maybe games into the season, and there was still more left. You got to wonder, A, how long was he playing through that pain, taking Toradol to just get through with it every day? B, what is the injury? Because I don't think I saw the injury in the report that said he was taking tramadol instead of Toradol. And then thirdly, he still had like 40 games left, bro. Taking a ton of Toradol, going into the playoffs, being on Toradol for the latter half of months, that's gotta mess with his system. You know, his liver, his stomach, it's gotta mess with some of that. But honestly, some situations like these really makes me appreciate NBA players more because you really never know what's going on in the medical room and in the locker room specifically. Like I said, Bobby Portis is taking Toradol on a daily basis, which is a painkiller. You really gotta wonder how long he's been playing with the pain, and what his day-to-day life looks like, because is he just taking Toradol when he gets to the stadium for game day, or is he taking Toradol every single day when he wakes up? If he's taking it every single day, bro, that's a different level of commitment. I honest to God couldn't tell you if I'd be taking a needleful of Toradol every single time I showed up to the stadium. It'd start getting a little bit old. All around, I don't think Bobby Portis is a bad guy. So obviously you see like performance enhancing drugs and you're like, oh, he was on steroids. And it's like, not really. It's more so a painkiller, tramadol. It's more severe than Toradol. And I think it might be a steroid, which is why it's banned. So that definitely, obviously it's illegally broke the rule, but 25 games feels a little bit heavy in my opinion. For a guy who's a first-time offender, I believe as well. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, of course. But I think he's a first-time offender, and I think his only other suspension was the Mirotic punch, which is still hilarious to this day. So big salute to BP, even though you may not want to hear that, a guy that got suspended. I'm going to have to say salute to him because of the simple fact that the man was playing through pain, obviously. He was hurting, and he mixed up his his assistant, they said in the report, mixed up the medication and got him tramadol instead of Toradol. If that's really, honestly, truthfully the case, that's tough because tramadol, Toradol, the names are pretty similar. I don't give benefit of the doubt to a lot of guys, but I'm going to give benefit of the doubt when it comes to Bobby Portis and saying that he definitely probably did this without intending to. I don't think Bobby Portis was thinking, I can sneak this tramadol by the drug testers for long enough to where I can make a championship run out of this. There's no way that was his thought process. Surely. But now with that out of the way, we can go and talk about the other big news that just came in about an hour ago almost. While I was recording the other video, like I said, you're gonna see me in the same clothes twice. We're gonna talk about Victor Wembanyama's injury. Not even an injury, really. Victor Wembanyama's done for the season. He has blood clots in his shoulder. It is called, and I quote, deep vein thrombosis. That sounds disgusting, but any medical term really doesn't sound great. Now, I know somebody who has deep vein thrombosis, and they've told me that it's not every day is hell. You're very uncomfortable. And once again, this loops kind of back into the Bobby Portis situation where it's like the guy Victor Wembanyama just played the All-Star game. And he was playing very hard in the All-Star game. He was dunking a lot. He was blocking shots. He was playing like Victor Wembanyama during the All-Star game. You got to wonder how long he's been dealing with that. And I assume at least, they probably put him on medications to try and thin or break up the clotting, which is what I believe they usually do. And it didn't work. So now they have to resort to surgery, which again, you just never want to hear. It definitely sucks, especially for the Spurs, who I thought could make a second half push. I thought the Spurs were really going to make this push, be a playoff team. I had them higher than the Mavericks. All around, I don't know. I don't know what this means for the Spurs. I definitely don't think it means that they're better. That's for damn sure not happening. However, there's a portion of me that would like to see them do something crazy, like go on a nice little playoff run while Wemby's out for the season or something. Wouldn't that be kind of fun? Wemby's done for the season and the Spurs just snap into gear, Charles Bassey at center, and just go killing teams. Can I say killing on YouTube? I don't really know. But anyways, tough situation all around with Wembanyama to talk about because blood clots are something very serious. They ended Chris Bosh's career, as we know. Very, very well reported, and we remember that. You're old enough to remember that, I'd assume. You're hoping that blood clotting isn't a common thing for Victor. You're hoping this is more of like a medical scare one-off. And honestly, this Spurs season has been so wild because you think about the first big injury, quote unquote, on their team. In my opinion, it was Greg Popovich having a stroke, and then he's still not back yet. Obviously, you can't compare Wemby's injury to Pop having a stroke, but at the end of the day, they're both going to miss a big portion of the season. Victor's just going to be done for the season. Pop, I don't know if he's coming back this season or not. So I don't really know, man. This Spurs season has been wild, and it feels rough for like a guy like De'Aaron Fox, who asked to be in San Antonio, wanted to play with Victor Wembanyama, got to play with Victor Wembanyama, and now there's no more Victor Wembanyama. This is per Underdog. I wanna read some of the stats that they had for Victor Wembanyama this season. He leads the NBA with 74 total blocks. He is the first player in NBA history to average 3+ blocks and 3+ threes in a season. Just crazy stuff. And then also 3.8 blocks per game. That's how much Victor averaged. That is the most blocks per game in a season since Alonzo Mourning in 98-99. An all-around amazing player is just being robbed a season from our viewing eyes. We will not be able to watch Victor Wembanyama anymore, man. That kills my mood for the day, honestly. Because, like I said, the Spurs were a team where I was really thinking that they had something going, and this was going to be a playoff push team down the stretch. But again, without Victor, I really don't know anymore. Of course, this sucks as a neutral NBA fan, as most of us are. I think we can look at this objectively and say that this is awful for the NBA. This is a global star and maybe the future face of the league in like 2 seasons, who's going to just, like I said, be robbed of a season where he was a Defensive Player of the Year winner. I'm gonna come around and say it. If he doesn't get hurt, he was a lock for Defensive Player of the Year. Now, NBA implications-wise, that decoy race is wide open. Wide open. Mobley, Jaren, maybe Dyson gets in there again. I doubt it. The Hawks are bad. But Mobley, Jackson, those are the 2 that I can think of that might take the top spot now. So, I guess we'll have to see who really, if somebody can leap the pack or, race out front, get a good lead or anything like that. But as for right now, without Wembanyama crossing the 65 games played mark, I'm going to be honest, I think my Defensive Player of the Year is probably Jaren Jackson, but I could see an argument for Evan Mobley as well, trust. They're saying Evan Mobley is going to make a full recovery and be ready for the offseason. Again, that's great news. It obviously makes you very happy that he's getting rid of the blood clotting, and hopefully, like we said, it's just a one-off. But of course, the only way he's going to be ready for the offseason is if he misses the rest of this season. So obviously for this season, it just absolutely collapses all momentum that I felt the Spurs had and were potentially building coming off of All-Star break. They get a couple more practices in where Fox can work with Wemby, get that 1-2 punch down, but now it's not there anymore. Their starting center is going to be like Charles Bassey or something. Not ideal. Don't get me wrong, I like Stephon Castle, I like, Devin Vassell, I like De'Aaron Fox, I love Chris Paul, of course, we love all those guys, but without Victor Wembanyama, their defense is going to look a little bit brutal. And then the offense, of course, the offense can still hum. Honestly, they have so many pieces, I think this offense can still hum. Chris Paul, De'Aaron Fox, Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, Sochan. You got a deep team, a relatively good team. So I think the offense can still be competitive, but the defense is where it starts to fall apart because Victor was taking everyone's lunch money at the basket. We could touch on this last bit of news that just came in as well. Chris Haynes reporting that Anthony Davis is progressing well and will be reevaluated in 2 weeks. Fine, I guess. It just sucks, again, for Mavericks fans because this was a team that when AD got traded there, we were like, they got depth in that front court spot. Now Gafford's down, Davis is down, and Lively's still down. And they're left with, like, Moses Brown. I think, who'd they sign the other day? Yep, it is Moses Brown. That's who they just signed to a 10-day the other day. Absolutely risk-free contract. They're desperate. They're absolutely desperate for front court play without any of their big 3 guys. Is Dwight Powell, still even playing for them anymore? I have no idea. But overall, I think that with them missing Anthony Davis still, again, this is another team where it's like, man, I don't know. This is a team that hasn't had any reps together with Anthony Davis. They had one game, all right, after he rushed back from injury. He looked fantastic in it, but he was holding his groin and was hurting very well. This is another team where it's like, I don't know where they're going to go. 2 more weeks before a reevaluation, and then you're hoping the reevaluation says he can come back. Because if after 2 weeks they say, well, we got to wait another week, how much longer? There's only like 30-something games left. There's not much else to talk about with the Anthony Davis situation. Reevaluated in 2 weeks. He'll come back, and hopefully they can make a push. But by then, I'm not really sure what the weeds will be. Because obviously the Spurs, I think, are going to start to fall out of this. But overall, I'm not sure how the NBA landscape's going to look for them around that 8 to 10 mark in about 2 weeks. Last closing statement I have about Victor Wembanyama was, I guess a blood clot's better than a broken bone, barring that this is a consistency thing for blood clots. Like, if blood clots don't keep popping up, I would take one blood clot, miss this season, be ready for the off season, be ready for the start of next season, over something like a tear, a ligament tear or something. My desk is wood, so I'm knocking on it. I don't know if you can hear that. Obviously, we're hoping he can make a speedy, full recovery, but he'd be missing like a full calendar year's time if he broke a bone, as to this, where he's only missing a couple of months, and he'll be back for the offseason. He can work with Fox in the offseason, and they can iron out that pick-and-roll game. It's going to be good come next season. I got a good feeling about it. So an all-time player like Victor Wembanyama will be back, and I'm just hoping that, like we talked about, this isn't a Chris Bosh situation where they just keep reappearing, and it's a continual thing. Hoping it's just a one-off. Shout out to Vic. Shout out Bobby Portis. Shout out Anthony Davis. All big men, all hurt in one day. Well, not all hurt. Bobby Portis isn't hurt. He's a drug addict. No, he's not a drug addict. I'm just joking. Just a joke, bro. He's fine. Like, comment, share, sub. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to go catch the game. See you guys in the next one.